Peace and welcome to Atlantis Build Talk Radio, the premier station for 5%er Nation of Gods and Earth social commentary, interviews, musicology, and uncensored discussions about the science of everything in life. This station is a subsidiary of Asia and the Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters at www.atlantischool.blogspot.com and Asia TV at YouTube/Quanaya. Quanah. Peace and welcome to another edition of Atlantis Build Talk Radio. I'm your host, Saladin, and in today's episode, I'm very excited to share with you this impromptu build between myself and my sister, Wisdom Be Born. She is an earth within our nation, and it's important to make sure that we are supporting platforms for earths to speak about our culture from their vantage point of view, because oftentimes there's a lacking when it comes to those particular media outlets. There's been many times where people will reach out to me from around the world and they want to connect to an earth. And for the most part, I connect them to an earth in a certain area personally. But it's not often that we have an opportunity to connect people into a digital world where we have earths that are writing articles on a consistent basis or publishing books or even sharing social commentary in a vlog type form so that people can be referenced to that. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that I share this impromptu build between myself and Wisdom Be Born is because some people may have not really engaged in Earth or heard her perspective of the culture from her vantage point of view. And that's very important. It's vital. Speaking from that vantage point of view can give people the whole picture. She talks a little bit about her journey in terms of gaining knowledge of self, certain things that are more gender specific as it relates to women and sisterhood, and just an overall conversation about various different cultural elements that we share in common. Wisdom Be Born has been very instrumental in creating initiatives, projects, and programs for sisters in our region. Now, I live in Atlantis, aka Niagara Falls, New York, and part of our region, which is Region 6 of our nation, encompasses this whole entire area, which includes Southern Ontario. And she's been very active and involved and consistent with getting sisters together and organizing them and sharing things from her experience in this nation. And a lot of people are not really aware of this new frontier. In terms of teaching civilization to all the human family, some of us may just look at that in a very theoretical sense. But the beauty of it is we are actually doing that. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to share and elaborate on some of those things. And I'm definitely going to have her back to elaborate on more things that she's been doing just to make sure that people get more of a well-rounded perspective of what our nation is about. So without further ado, this is an impromptu build between myself and my sister, Wisdom Be Born. And then also if there are certain things that you would like for me to elaborate on or to share with her, send me an email at atlantisbuild@gmail.com, and we'll definitely cover that terrain the next time that we're in tune with each other. Enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in, and peace.
You'll be teaching a group of people, right? And then one of them in the group really got it.
Yeah.
You know, they really gonna get it, and you know this, you know? And at first, there's such a high magnetic, right? So everybody wants to come around and be around each other. But then, like, once the other people start to really realize, like, yo, I really have to do work because I'm gonna be constantly checked, asked, and examined when I come around these people. They don't want to do that no more. So then you start to see them, you know, fall off, you know. And it's hard. I think probably as an educator, the hardest part is not becoming emotionally attached to the outcome of things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think too, like having delusions of grandeur. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes people approach this process as if people are their project, and it's a relationship. So when a person chooses to do what they want to do, they may feel a sense of failure. But it's like, nah, they choosing to do what they want to do, just like you chose to do what you want to do, and you can't control nobody's destiny like that. You know?
So I think in those regards is because we are accountable to a degree, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, am I accountable for how their life shapes out? No. But if they go to a parliament or a rally or show and prove talking about, yeah, my educator said blah blah blah, or my alphabet it's zigzag zoo, or just some off the wall,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm held accountable for that,
Yeah.
for the knowledge and the wisdom,
Yeah.
but as far as the understanding that they decide to develop and go with and take and life paths and whatever, it's like, no. So I think sometimes we confuse what we're accountable for and what we aren't accountable for.
I'm I'm very cautious too of putting my name associated with that. Like if we just dealing with general civilization and just building, that's one thing. But don't be going around telling people that I'm your educator.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because you got to have a certain standard. Because you are
yeah.
formally learning this culture.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being in proximity to us and you learning cultural elements of just civilization. You know?
Yeah, that happens a lot because especially like in the root, when we would have civilization classes, whether it was me or one of my brothers, when you're in that type of setup, when you're teaching a civilization class, sometimes the people who are coming around don't really understand the difference between somebody who's your enlightener and somebody's class you're attending. And sometimes they would, get things twisted where it's happened to my brothers. People would be like, oh yeah, so-and-so taught me. My bro would be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean I taught you? Yeah, remember I came to your civilization class every Friday, the whole 2004, or whatever. I was there every Friday, every Saturday. And it's like, no, that's a different, kind of relationship, Even with all the girls now, we do the cooking classes and things like that. It's like, I'm very clear now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not your educator, Like, we talk and I familiarize you with the culture. And I actually use that platform to more so help Janati learn how to become an educator. So it's kind of like when they'll ask questions, I kind of like redirect them to her, when we're impractical, well, what do you think about that? Well, we'll tell her about the nation history or, and let her start to learn how to walk with it.
Yeah. I was building with my brother, Be Righteous, yesterday. He's in Power Hill. And I was telling him about you and all of the things that you're doing out here. And he was just like, wow, really? And I'm like, yeah, she be traveling up here faithfully, consistently building with the sisters. And when we have our civilization classes or any kind of events going on, the core group of people there are young sisters. And that's because of the things that you're doing. And having that commitment and that voice in terms of sharing what this nation is about from your perspective as an earth is important because we don't have a lot of those type of consistent voices out there to be able to refer people to this is what it is. Because I'm not going to speak for you. You speak for yourself, and that's important to have that. And that's one reason why I wanted to take an opportunity to just build with you and to give people some idea of, this is what's going on where we at. You know what I'm saying?
I think as far as like I feel like I became a better educator once I became a mother because having my own children now, I'm not going back to what we were just building about before, like I'm not attached to the outcome of things, you know? Like I really, in this process of growing them, I could really see how they're, even though they are of me, that they are their own person as well, right? And so now it has me able to look at the people that I'm giving knowledge itself to in a little bit different fashion. Like I'm not attached to the outcome of things, and I could really more see them, not really as a child, I would say, but I could see them going through that same process of childhood in having the knowledge of their self. And when I have my daughter, she's 4 now, one of the things that I realized is that I feel that there wasn't really an importance or significance or outreach of the black woman child. Normally when we speak, even when we're talking about the babies, most of us, even myself included, we are talking about the black male child, okay? Even the star in our flag. You know, you'll have a lot of people who would say a lot of different things, but most people say that that star is the black male child, okay? So I understand though, because when you look at what's going on with the black man, there's definitely a genocide going on there, you know? But now we're coming into pressing problems where people will be like, I just want me a woman who loves the culture. Or I can't get no woman that loves this culture. Because there ain't really no women who are getting this culture as a baby. Because there was no significance on saving the black woman child along with the black man child. So now you got all these black grown man childs and they ain't got no woman.
Yo.
They ain't got no woman.
Wow.
So when people meet me and they're like, well, Wisdom, well, what is it about you? Why do you love this nation like this? And this is because I got the knowledge when I was a baby. When I was a baby, like literally, when I started studying independently on my own, I'm 12, 13 years old. The same age as most of the gods are when they were getting this, okay? So I was able to literally grow with this culture, love this culture, you know? And yeah, like but then I look at most of the women who got it, and they got this culture much older. Already, and now you got to understand also too, a woman is much more mature than a man. Okay, so if she's getting this at 19 years old, she's got the mind, the body, the intuition, the ingenuity of a grown woman. Even if she's 19.
Yeah.
She's already operating like a 29-year-old in her mind, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, so my whole thing as far as what's going on up here and in Canada is like, how do I give this to young black girls? You know?
Yeah.
How do I do that? How do I make them fall in love with this in a place that's pure, that's innocent, that isn't born in like a perversion? Not saying that anything's wrong with this, but most women that I know, they got this because their boyfriend so-and-so, or they was dating this dude in jail, or, you know, it came from a romantic place, you know, which I could get into another build about that. That becomes very dangerous because that's the foundation of a seed. A lot of them still believe in a mystery God, just in a different way. You know what I mean? It's just in a different way. Now it's replaced with a black man, you know? Yeah. But when you get this in a pure place, from your father, from your brother, where it's, you know, like in the lap, like so innocently, like holding a child, you love it.
Yeah. So when you got knowledge, how did you get introduced to it at 12, 13?
Okay, so at this time, my father was incarcerated, right? And I've always been around the knowledge around him, you know. My father has knowledge, right? And but I was never interested in it, right? But now he's incarcerated and I don't have him any longer. I can't sit down, verse with him and talk to him, you know? And so during his incarceration, he would write me all the time, and I wrote him back. And every time he would write me, he would build on the day's math. And when I wrote him back, I would build on the day's math. And then I was just like, then I reached a point. Remember when we were talking about earlier when I was saying you can't keep coming around if you're not gonna really study. Right? You have to like prove things to people, right? So at this point, I'm feeling a little sharp now because I'm building on my math every day. You know what that could do to somebody, you know? So I'm building on my math every day. I'm building on my alphabet every day. This is in 2000. I was like 12, right? And now I'm starting to like, you know, when I see the gods in front of the building, I'm like, peace, God. This, you know, starting to, you know, wrap my hair, starting to like, you know, really embody the culture more. And now they're starting to press me, test me. Yo, how you see today's math? Yo, what degree is that in the alphabet? Yo, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, man, I really have to study, you know? Well, what lessons you on? And I'm like, oh, I don't got no lessons. You know, oh man, you don't got no lessons, you know? And then it was like, man. So then I knew I had to humble myself to my father. And then so I wrote him a letter. I was like, you know, I was like, God, I really wanna study 120, you know? And he wrote me a letter back. It wasn't like a, yeah, I'm gonna teach you 120 thing or anything like that. It was just kind of like on some, you know, let's keep building on your mathematics and make your house strong, your math and your alphabet strong. And so I think he wanted me to like send him a breakdown of mathematics and alphabets or something like that. But he made me fast, and I was only 12. And this was, I don't wanna like, I am gonna say it. I don't know what people is doing nowadays, okay? Because some people are not fasting at all, okay? Some people are inventing what kind of fast they want to do. So now they doing smoothies, teas, juices, all kind of stuff, or fruits and vegetables. I just ain't eating no meat or dairy, God. You know, I did my 3-day fast. No, when we was getting this and when we were coming up, a 3-day fast meant you drunk water for 3 days, exactly. Nothing else. And I did this at 12 years old. So it's like, if I'm teaching somebody and they're going to start telling me what kind of fast they're doing, like, oh, well, can I drink a smoothie? Can I drink? I'm like, no, it's water. And if you can't do that, I'm not teaching you. Unless you got some health issue, you're diabetic or something like that, then I'll improvise some sort of type of fast with you, right? But it's like, if I did that at 12, water for 3 days at 12 years old, you could do that at 18, 19, 20 something. I'm not trying to hear that. So I did my 3-day fast, and that was a funny story in itself because I didn't know anything about fasting. And when I broke the fast, I got some white rice, broccoli, and chicken from the Chinese spot, and I threw up right after I ate it. I couldn't even eat that much, and I threw right up after that. But yeah, so I fasted, and then after I fasted, I got my student enrollment. And majority of my...
So you got it from your old dad?
Yeah, my father. Okay. Yeah, I got my 1 to 10, my 1 to 36, and most of my 1 to 14 from him. Yeah.
Okay. So then from that point, what was your next steps?
Okay, so when I became sharp in my lessons, which was very quickly, right? I was like, man, I'm going to start going to the root, right? Because I've been there a few times in my childhood, you know, so I was familiar. But I'm from the south side of Brooklyn, Coney Island. They call it Islam, and none of the gods, you know, at that time was really going to the root like that. You know what I mean? There was only one God that would be in the root from my hood, and he recently just passed away a few years ago. His name was Jamel Shabazz, right? He was like one of the elder to me, but there was elders much older than him in my neighborhood, you know. But he would go to the root. He was like the only one. But there was a lot of gods in my neighborhood, but they kind of like just did their own thing, you know. I understand that now because I do my own thing, you know. But I didn't understand that then. Then it was like, if you're not going to the root, like you're not authentic, you know. And so I felt this need of like I had to authenticate myself, you know. And so I just started going down to the root, you know. And I would be in the school every day. I got out of school, I went to the school. I went to everybody's class. I just was there. I went to every parliament, everything that they had going on. I was there. Like I literally just submerged myself in the root. And I think that's very important. Not to say that you have to submerge yourself in the root, because we already know that the root of civilization is where the knowledge and wisdom is at, okay? So what I mean by that is, if, all right, maybe you're not from Naui, you know? Maybe you from Minnesota, but wherever the gods is at and the earths is at in Minnesota, that's where you need to be. Yeah. That's where you definitely need to have a period where you submerge yourself in this. Not saying you have to stay there, but there definitely has to be that period where you are, where you're really grounded in this. I think one time Kaleem said, it was in the Power paper, I don't remember which one, but Kaleem said something along the facts of like, you had to attend 360 parliaments or something like that to really, you know, like really be submerged in this. And I think that's like 10 years or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like 10 years of like, you know?
Yeah. Civilization is a group reality. Culture is a collective reality. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how you gonna learn how to live a way of life if you're not around people?
That's living.
Transmitting and receiving and exchanging ideas.
Yeah, so I was just in the school every day, everybody's classes at that time. You had Wise Jamel. He was doing his 120 class. You had Firstborn Prince. You had Sunyas. You had Victorious. And I was just, whoever's class, I was there every day after school. Sometimes they'd be like, did you go to school today? Because as soon as the bell let out, I'd jump on the train. And I had to travel pretty far because I'm from Coney Island. And so I would take the D train all the way to 125th. And I was like about an hour and a half, you know, on the train, you know? Yeah. So.
What motivated you to want to travel that far and do it at that age? Like what impressed upon your mind the most of wanting to be in that kind of environment?
I never really been asked that question before. I think that I think with this culture, and not even just this culture, just something how I am, that I'm obsessed with organic things. I'm obsessed with authenticity. I'm obsessed with foundational things, you know, like even as a chef, right? Like I'm a chef. Like if I'm making something, I want to find the most authentic recipe, you know? Like, and sometimes that's not even good for me. Sometimes I just want to learn from the most authentic hands, you know, like this is how you make pasta, or this is how you make marinara sauce from fresh Roma tomatoes. And so I knew that there was something missing that I wasn't getting, you know? And I knew a lot of that had to do with my father being in jail, so we're not face to face with each other. And then the people in my neighborhood just wasn't cutting it. And it's not to talk down or to talk bad, because we all serve a different purpose and a different role. So I've made it in a part of my enlightenment where I don't really say this is God and that's not God, because the more you say what God isn't, you're moving away from what God is. But I knew as far as how I wanted to have this knowledge, nobody I was around had it the way I wanted it, the way I perceived it already in my mind, the way that I was reading these great stories in history, and I wasn't really seeing that. And so that's what propelled me, that I have to go to the root. And the funny part is when I got there, it took me a long time to even really get what I wanted there, you know? I didn't get that right away because a lot of that took months, years of building trust and relationships with people. And once they start to see you on consistent basis, some of the strongest relationships that I have that still stand today was some of the hardest to form. You know, because in this culture, there's definitely you have to build a certain layer of trust first before a person's willing to give you anything.
Definitely. So then at this point, you had your 1 to 10s, your math, your alphabet.
1 to 36.
1 to 36. You had part of your 1 to 14s at this time?
Yeah, part of my 1 to 14, about probably maybe up to like the God degree. Why does the devil call our people African?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened next? Where did you go? Where did you meet? Where did you get the rest of your
So I'm there like, you know, every day, and then this is when I meet Prince. Okay. And I don't have no magical story. He was mean, he was bitter, you know, he was old, you know, and I didn't know. All right, so this is another funny thing, is that I didn't know who he was either. But I knew he was important because it's just everybody kind of like straightened up in a way, you know, when his presence, you know.
Like there was people was scared to get bombed. They didn't know when he was going to
But you know, the thing is because I was so young, you gotta like, I'm 12, 13 years old. I'm just moving so carelessly because I'm a baby, you know? And so it's like, I really thought I was sharp because everybody seemed so impressed by me, but I wasn't sharp. It was just I brung life there, you know? It's like she's so young and she's a little girl, you know? And they make sure they walk me to the train station if it got too dusky outside or whatever. I definitely felt protected, you know, loved, cherished, you know?
So when you met Prince, like what was the situation when you met him?
There was an older Earth, and she would kind of like fuss him out, right? Because, you know, he had the situation with his leg going on, and he'll be in a lot of pain. And she gave him some aspirin, and he didn't want to take it. And I'm just looking at this guy like, you know, like, what am I gonna learn from this guy, you know? And she like fussing with him. And then he just puts the Tylenol in his mouth, and then he chews it. He chews it. And I'm just like, you know? And he never really would acknowledge me. And I think that had a lot to do with, when I look back on it, everybody else acknowledging me so much, especially Waj Jamel. Waj Jamel loved me so much, you know, like, he was just like, you know, he just...
Proud.
Yeah, very proud, you know, and he would just like put me on this pedestal, and then, but I could see Prince's face was like so unimpressed by me, you know, like, you know, like, I'm not impressed by this girl, you know.
So Prince took you under his wing.
Yeah, when he saw how stupid I was. Like, you know, like one of these, you know.
What were some of your other memories of Prince? And I'm asking this because, you know, you got a lot of people nowadays that's getting knowledge of self, and these people that we knew personally are just kind of figments or figures of their imagination. People that they've just heard things about, you know?
I was dating a brother at this time. I'm not gonna say his name because he's still my brother, you know. But we were dating at this time, and we were young. I was like maybe 15 at the time. This brother was probably like 17, 18. He's also a 5% a baby, and but we weren't good for each other. We were always fighting, always arguing. And I came into school and I was mad, you know, and I'm on the board writing the day's mathematics. And this is when they had a chalkboard, you know, in the school. And so the chalk is just falling so violently as I'm writing the day's degree. And Prince is just sitting there and he's like, look at you. He's like, look at you. Face all red, all emotional, all angry. And then he started to build on the knowledge power degree and the law free cipher. And that's when he gave me this whole different understanding of what a bloodsucker was, you know, because sometimes we looking for that 10% to be you know, outside of our own people, you know?
Some white man in a business suit.
Yeah, a white man in a business suit. Or at that time in my growth and development, we looking at the reverends, ministers, preachers, you know, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, how you feeling right now? Your head hurt? You lightheaded? These is all the symptoms of being bloodsucked. You being emotionally bloodsucked, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, I am, you know, and then that gave me a whole different view to view what a bloodsucker was, and you know that I'm getting bloodsucked right now in this relationship that I'm in that's obviously not working, right? Yeah, he had a way of being able to look at somebody and assess what their day has been like, you know?
Yeah.
And he definitely was extremely intuitive. Yeah. You know, he said a lot to me. You know, he'd be like, Wisdom, you could tell a lot about a motherfucker by their name and what the fuck they dealing with by their physical degree. And so that became a practice of mine, is whenever I would meet somebody to want to know their name. If I didn't understand it myself, I would ask for a breakdown, and then I would want to know their physical degree, because I would look at that in my lessons and it would give me a fairly accurate perception of where they at that point in time.
So also during that time, what was your relationship with some of the sisters that you came in contact with?
Some of my favorite, I would say, probably the most inspirational women for me at that time when I was young, well, definitely Queen Shamika. She was definitely
from Power One.
Yeah, Queen Shamika, she was definitely very inspirational and very extremely mothering to me whenever I got to see her or Gazair, you know. They always had good advice for me. They always wanted to know what I was doing, how I was doing in school, when I would be going to college. Like, they always kept up with me academically, you know. Queen Medina, she's from Medina. That was the god Kendu's Earth. He passed away recently, I think, 2007, I think. But they were also like, you know, parents to me growing up. They were definitely my parents in this. Growing up, they always made sure I was, you know, staying on a good path, you know, wasn't getting mixed up with, you know, anything. I definitely more so gravitated towards God and Earth couples, I think, because I was missing that family dynamic between my own mother and father. And so, yeah, I got very close to elder gods and Earths.
With those Earths at that time, are there many distinctions that you see with the way in which they presented and represented the culture as opposed to some of the things that you may see today?
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, they were more like they were more like how you would envision your grandmother to be, even if they weren't grandmother ages. They just had that wisdom. They were all into health and crafting, which those were things that were instilled in me very young, just being around them. It kind of, I can't really say, oh, that's missing, because I don't really like to judge or compare myself to other women. But, there's a certain, not even just on a nation point of view, but just on a point of view of women, there are certain things lacking in women of these generations that they're no longer doing, that their mothers were doing, or their grandmothers were doing, or their great grandmothers. And so a lot of times what people don't understand is that in our nation, this is showing you a smaller picture of what's really happening in reality, but we get to see it so more personally because it's only 5% of us. But this is happening in the 85, this is happening in the 10, this is going on globally, that we are no longer finding importance of things the old way. Or like when I was coming up in this culture, there was a lot of like the Earths in those times definitely carry this self. I don't want to say like MGTs as far as the Nation of Islam is concerned, but they did adhere to a lot of those type of rules. They weren't out there cursing and swearing. They didn't have their hair out. They had a lot of poise about themselves. And I remember one of the first things that my father gave me was it was from Elijah Muhammad. It was called it was like 100 do's and don'ts of the MGT. And I don't remember it like verbatim, but just to give you like what was in it, it was like, do not chew gum, do not eat publicly, like as far as like on a train or walking, or make sure you cover below this, above that, don't be boisterous, don't be cursing, don't bite your nails. And so I don't know if that was something that all these sisters were reading, but when I looked at a lot of these older sisters, they seemed to have that type of elegance, that type of class, and they were all into health, herbs, something like that. They all either dealt with some herbs. That's how I got into herbs. Or they dealt with some type of crocheting, some type of like like MGT, cook, sewing in general, acting home and abroad. They were talking about raising their children, and and things like that. And I think when I look at everything now, sometimes it seems like everybody is so far, I don't want to say so far away. It's like sometimes it seems like we're dealing with so many sciences that don't really belong to us. Well, everything belongs to us, but aren't the fabric of this.
Yeah, like what's the most practical things we need to be focusing on right now?
Well, everything in the knowledge culture degree in the 1 to 14,
Yeah.
It's like, let's raise these babies, let's learn how to sew, let's learn how to do more things, in the home. That is an endless science in itself. Some women look at that degree and they're just like, well, I already know how to do this. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because if you even start to do this, you would see how intricate this gets. Even just rearing your children by itself,
Yeah.
When I just sit and apply myself to the raising of my children, I'm into their diet. I'm into what they eating mentally, physically. I'm into teaching them these lessons. That's endless in itself, Just spending time with your babies. Do you know your home, Making this little small repairs around my home, painting around my home, making my house an actual home, keeping it nice, keeping it clean, keeping an environment that's conducive for love, nurturing, growing. All these things are endless science. Like, you could write books and books and books and books and books and books and books on that one degree alone, you know? But some women, they look at that degree and they feel diminished instead of empowered, you know? It's like, what that degree is really telling you is that you are solely or primarily responsible for the shaping of society. How powerful is that? How powerful is that? That you get to be the first person to teach what your society, what you want society to look like, right? So it's like, if every mother knew that degree, how better would the world be? You know, and to know that's my job. Wow, this is a heavy job. I get to do all of this by myself, you know? Like, wow, that's you know, and I think that the reality of that hit me when I became a mother, you know? I reveal is going to be 11 in May, you know? And when I had him, that's when I really realized, like, well, that the babies are the greatest for sure, you know? But then also, like, how I have a very big responsibility because I'm shaping society, literally, you know? Literally.
Now, in terms of being the earth, what's your perspective on that? Like, some people think, like, in order for a woman to be earth, she has to have 120. Some believe that or think that you don't have to have 120. Some think that you don't even have to have anything that deals with this culture to be earth. Like, what is your perspective on that?
Well, it's one of those touchy subjects, right? Because it's like the earth in theory, or how we use it, we mean a woman who has give forth children of God, right? Or from God, right? But as far as like this nation is concerned, I feel that the women should be held to the same standard as the men. As far as accountability, right? So, like, how long can a man go around and be like, oh, I'm Allah, I'm God, and he not checked on his? That's not going to happen, right? You know, like, that's not going to happen. And so it's like it's the same thing, you know? Like, you do have to know, first of all, to hold any title in this nation, you have to meet the qualifications of that. And 120 is our core curriculum. You know what I mean? So I don't see any title a man or a woman could hold in this without being qualified. You know, like we're teachers. That's what we do. And 120 is the tool that we agreed on, that this is how we're gonna teach. So if you are a 5%er, that means you're a teacher, right? That means more specifically that you're a teacher in this way of life, right? So if you don't know 120, what are you teaching? If you're calling yourself a 5%er, because I understand knowledge is infinite, I could teach a whole lot of things, you know? I could teach a whole lot of things, but if I'm saying that I'm a 5%er, that should be the foundation. Another thing that I notice is that a lot of people are getting this too old, okay? And they're building 120 on top of a whole bunch of things that they already know. And so they, like, say for instance, right? 120 is 120 is like a whole bunch of little things about a whole bunch of lot of things, you know? But somebody might, let me think about a degree. Okay. Born degree, 1 to 14, right? Somebody might know so much about masonry that they might not even feel like they got to memorize that degree. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know much about masonry, okay? I could talk about that degree a little bit in depth. I know there's a Scottish rite and a York rite. You know, I know there's different steps and all this kind of stuff. But as far as like the history, the origin, what year was that? I'm not really good in history. But what I do know is when people are coming from other knowledge, other schools of thought, or maybe that they're so old that they've been searching through all these knowledge and things, they never really commit to knowledge in 120 because they might feel like they know a lot of this already or a lot of that already. But that's what 120 is about. 120 is about giving you a reference point to the world. So it's a little bit here, and there for you to go. Check out and to study more on yourself. But there hasn't been any place that I've went in the world or any experience that I have been through in my almost 32 years of living that I wasn't able to pinpoint through these lessons. Like, that's what I'm going through. That's what I'm going through right there. You know, even with today's degree of the 1 to 14, I'm like, that's where I'm at right there, you know? Yeah. I'm there right there, and I want to take it back. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you know? And so, for me, and I don't know if maybe I feel a bias because 120 is my foundation, but for me, there hasn't been anything that I studied that has been as versatile as 120. True. No religion, no other culture, no nothing, you know? And so, and it also makes us open to receiving things, you know? But sometimes you'll see a lot of people coming from other said nations, other conscious nations, Nubians or Moors, and they're already indoctrinated in that they almost don't even think it's important to knowledge 120, or they think that they're smarter than that. For real. Yeah. You know, they really think that they're smarter than that, you know?
Now, what do you think about those who that's in our nation that may say, like, it ain't even about 120, it's just about supreme mathematics. That is our real foundation, you know, and the supreme alphabet. That's, we should emphasize that as opposed
to,
give
up the language then. You know, that's how I feel about it. Give up the language, because it'll be those same people that be like, it's all about mathematics and alphabet. Word is bond, God. Give up the language then. You know, because I'm the said person of the ability. I'm a lord of the earth and the heavens. Give up the language then. Because, you know, a lot of people be like, well, you know, supreme mathematics is our language. That's true. It is a language. Mathematics is a language. But when we talking about how we speak in this nation, it took me so quick to knowledge 120 because everybody says 120 when you're around this culture like that, you know? So I get to a degree and I'll be like, oh man, you know, I'm held responsible for the uncivilized. Oh man, I know this already. I know this. Yeah. And so it's like, no, it's mathematics and alphabet is extremely important. Extremely. You should have a strong foundation in it, and you're not going to understand 120 without mathematics and alphabet. But 120 gives you this map to the whole world. Like, I seen most of the world before I even started to travel. I'm 13 years old and I'm seeing the world through these lessons, right? And so when I come into adulthood, I spent from maybe 23 until 29, 22 to 28. Yeah, I spent about 8 years abroad. And I'm seeing Asia. I lived in Asia and in South Korea and Seoul. And then I lived in Europe, in Germany, in Schweinfurt, you know? And so I'm seeing my lessons in real time as I'm traveling, you know? Like I'm seeing EU means hillside. I'm seeing Far East, bordered by the Indian Ocean on the south side. I'm seeing these things, you know? And so it was just like 120 gave me this reference that whether you're talking about geographically or even emotionally, I knew where I was at because I could look at these lessons and be like, yeah, that's what I'm going through. Now, or this is where I'm at.
Now, what do you mean emotionally? What's an example of that?
I I don't know, emotionally, build degree, 1 to 40, what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes, right? Or even knowledge, understanding degree. You're still going through that. But brings rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. It's like, I'll be going through things in my life, or in my whole wisdom ciphers, we'll call firstborn prince used to call those the Yakub years, those were the years of experimenting. And so it's like I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s, but then when I would look, I would be beating myself up, but then when I look at my lessons, I'd be like, no, I'm right on time. Like I'm right on time. This is what I'm supposed to be doing at these years. I'm testing my magnetic. I'm seeing what works, what's not. I'm making promises. I'm cutthroat about what I want to do. I'm hurting people, but I got these ideas that I got to get them out, And when I would look at my lessons, it was like confirmation. It was like I didn't really feel so bad about where I was at, because it was proof like I was on time.
What's the importance of sharing that perspective in an environment of sisterhood?
Well, the importance is creating bonds, between women. I think that is something that's just lost. I would say a lot of my life work is dedicated to bond making between women, whether I'm teaching cooking classes or breastfeeding or marriage counseling or whatever. It's like, how can I feel like women are losing that, how to make bonds with each other, and we just know how to maybe be envious or jealous of one another. And so 120, when you're teaching somebody 120 and you're teaching a woman 120, to me and the sisters that I taught 122, we have this kind of like bond that's unshakable, unbreakable. There's no amount of time that could hinder that, like I told you, like I was abroad for 8 years, right? And when I went abroad, I felt this deep need that I had to rediscover myself, and I cut myself off from everybody, everything, where I just had to, I wanted to submerge myself in travel and motherhood and really put in what I spent my life studying to the test, And so when I picked back up with these sisters, it was like no time had passed between us, because we already got to solidify something in our minds with each other, because you think about when I'm teaching somebody 120, I focus a lot on fasting, not just that 3-day fast, we fast a lot when I'm going through 120 with somebody, and sometimes even for long periods. I remember one of the sisters I taught 122, me and her fasted 21 days together, and we lived together at that time. So that was like a very cementing, bonding experience through these lessons. You know what I mean? And we're, like I think.
So when you say fast a lot, are you also talking about fasting from other different things as well?
Oh yeah. At that time we'll be like, well, maybe we'll go on a 21-day juice fast, right? And in those days we didn't have these smartphones, so I can't say we fasted from the internet, because the internet wasn't even something so prevalent then. But we might say, we're not gonna be dating no guys, or or having no sex or whatever. We just gonna focus on fasting. I don't really say that we said we weren't gonna do X, Y, and Z, but we definitely said that we're going to do A, B, and C, which eliminates X, Y, and Z. So if it's like, 21 days, we're going to drink green juice, we're going to study these lessons, we're going to read, we're going to be in the library every day. Naturally, we didn't have time for all this other, extra stuff. So we fasted, from a lot of things. You know, I think fasting is very important. I definitely know when I was coming up, it was very prevalent amongst the gods. You would see them fasting all the time. I remember, um, I forgot this brother's name. It was Peace something. He's an elder god. He's a knowledge seed, and he's from Mecca. But he will always be carrying a gallon of water, making that master cleanse. And that's when I learned about it, you know? Because the thing is that now a lot of things are memes on social media. You have a meme. Oh, here's the 21 day cleanse, blah, blah. When we learned this stuff just by being around each other, you know? There was no meme for it. There was no this, you know? Yeah. So not even, and then I would get the book after because a god or earth put me on, you know, and be like, yo, well, we doing this, we doing a saltwater flush, or we doing this. But fasting was very prevalent, you know, and it was something that was, you know, you'll be in the school and or I'll be at a rally and maybe I have brung some rice and beans or some whiting, and I might say to my sister or my brother, yo, I made some fish, you want to play? And they'd be like, nah, I'm fasting today. That was very common then, and I keep it in my daily practice, even my monthly. I try to get in at least a 3-day once a month, but I'm always doing some kind of fast, whether it's a juice fast, a smoothie fast, some kind of fast. So I'm not eating no dairy this week, you know. I don't eat meat, you know, and so it's like I'm always doing some type of fast because I feel like that's when the mind works at its best. And I feel like as a whole, we could be returning back to some of our more original roots, and fasting was definitely one of them. You know?
Now, for some of the sisters that's coming around today, younger sisters that's interested, what would you say are some of the things they need to consider in terms of what knowledge itself is about and just taking that journey?
I feel like one of the biggest distractions to getting knowledge now is one of the biggest attractions to getting knowledge now, and that's the internet. Okay. So they get attracted through this means, but then it distracts them as well. You know, because they become. I started to notice that there's this trend where people are emerged with the culture via the internet, but the culture is not prevalent in their life at all. I'm on social media, right? If there's a God of Earth on my Facebook or on my IG, I know that brother and sister. I don't care if your name is Allah, Earth, Asia, my Asia, I don't care. If I don't know you, I'm not on your Facebook and you're not on my Facebook, okay? Because then it starts to create this, you know, I'll see these people and they'll be like 43 mutual friends. And I'm like, who's this? I don't know this person, you know? And then, you know, I start looking and, you know, I'm not saying you could always judge a book by its cover, but I could tell, like, you're not really the earth. You taking pictures in this mirror. The mirror is dirty. There's toothpaste all over it. Your bedroom is nasty and disgusting. There's a picture of a baby with a saggy diaper on. You don't have any refinement on. You don't, like, there's nothing earthly about you other than that you slapped earth on the end of this social media name and you're friends with 40-something gods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now that is starting to become the culture. And then I'll reach out. I might hit a sister up like, yo, peace, how long you been studying? Or, no, I don't study 120, or I don't know 120, or I ain't never been here, or I never. And then you start to see that you ain't never even been around nobody in this culture. And then the more sadder part is that these people are in major cities. You know, these people are in New York. These people are in PA. These people are in, you know, and it's like, so there's no excuse. You don't live, you know, some far ways place. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it becomes a distraction because you think that this culture is just about, you know, saying peace to the gods, having a head wrap on and a few pictures and writing EYE to mean I to sound cool on on a status or something. It's like we don't even talk like that. It's like you never.
Or saying word is born.
Yeah, word is born. Or it's just like what?
Is it possible to check that? How do we address that?
I think by ignoring it. I don't think some of my I wouldn't even say my brothers. Some of my uncles, I'll consider these brothers my uncles. They be going in on that Facebook, and I be creeping in their inbox, and I be like, God, why are you worrying about these people? You ain't never gonna see them at no rally. They ain't never gonna teach no class nowhere. You know, because the thing is that those people always existed, and they will always exist. It's just Facebook puts them in our face now, because that's what Facebook is supposed to do. But those people always existed. There's always been people that want to be like us, want to do like us. We're very magnetic, They take a few of our words and then they go around their friends to, try to sound like us, But they're not us, And then some of them genuinely do want to learn, but the thing is with this culture is like when you have, I think not even just this culture in life, when you have an idea and you want to do something, you got to strike at that idea when you have that enthusiasm about it. And so people don't strike at knowledge in 120 or getting an educator or meeting the gods on earth formally, and then it just kind of dissipates and it's no longer something that they want to do. You'll see two different classes of people, like women, right? You'll see the women who don't place an importance in 120, and it's like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then you'll see women who do place this importance in 120, and they kind of act as if they're better than everybody else because they do have 120. Number one, you ain't teaching nobody 120 if you carry yourself in this way that you are better because you know 120. I know right off the bat, I could tell you ain't never even taught nobody, because there's a certain degree of humbleness that you have to even be able to convey this to somebody else and teach somebody else, right? And so it kind of like 120 is like pretty much will be like the only thing they know. Well, it's like, well, I know 120, and that's kind of like just as foolish as you ever see like adult people, male or woman, and they be like, well, I got a job, I got a car, I got my own place, I pay my bills. That's what you're supposed to do as an adult. You don't get no kudos or cookies for that. And so it's like with women who know 120, there's no, what do you want? That's what we agreed as a culture is required. So you don't get a special praise or pass just because so many other women decided not to take this serious. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to go, we're not going to now put this woman on a pedestal because she knew 120.
Yeah.
That's what she's supposed to know.
Yeah.
That's what she's supposed to know.
So what would you say to the women that may not see the value, or the importance of 120, that may feel as if they are not as important or less than a woman that's saying like, well, I got 120 and you ain't really the earth because I got 120? And what would you say to women that?
I would say to them, maybe they should figure out why they don't have it, If they don't have it, do they want it? And how could you identify yourself as being a part of this if you don't have it, right? Because this is something that I'm noticing, not even just amongst the women, but amongst the men, right? When we're looking at our knowledge equality degree in the Law Free Cipher, there's a clear outline of who we are, measured by certain characteristics, okay? And a lot of us are just filling the first part out, that we're knowing who the true and living God is. But we're not teaching who the true and living God is. So you could know that the black man is God all day long. If you haven't figured out a way in your daily life to actually teach and convey that, you are not a 5%er. You aren't. That's for men or women, okay? Because it's not just good enough to know. You have to be able to teach this. So how could you say that you are a 5%er as a man or a woman and you don't know 120? It doesn't make sense. You understand? Are you a conscious person? Are you a great person? Are you a wonderful, fair, just person? You probably all that and some more, but you're not a teacher. You're not a teacher. And the thing is about this nation is that we agree that we're coming together to teach. That's what we all should have in common. Now, how we teach is going to be different ways. You dealing in preschool, I'm a chef. There's brothers and sisters who do different things, doctors, lawyers, nurses, whatever your vehicle, how you choose, healthcare, whatever is your vehicle, how you choose to convey this knowledge is your right, it's your business, but that's unanimous. We all have to be teachers. That is not a choice. That's not a choice. That's not something we could go look at that knowledge equality degree and be like, yo, I know who the true and living God is. I ain't really taught anybody, but yeah, I'm still a 5%er. No, you're not. You're not. You're not, and I think, and then just even, and then not saying that if you haven't taught somebody 120, you're not a 5%er. I've taught people 120, but no, I don't think that qualifies you as a teacher and by itself, but you have to find out a way that you could use 120. And you can't figure out a way to use 120 unless you know 120. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just go look at it 2 or 3 times and then go, okay, well, I know how I'm going to apply this. No. It doesn't work that way,
Plus, too, you look at the duty of a civilized person and what we have to do, teaching civilization and all the other different elements. I mean, you have to be qualified to do that. And in those elements, it don't specifically say 120. It says knowledge of self and
the sciences of everything in life, love, peace, and happiness. We dealing with all of those elements, in 120. Further degrees are going to touch upon all those things, right? And so it's like, no, 120 is important. It's important. And I remember, I think when I acknowledged 120 when I was 15. I didn't really even know what I was doing then, But I knew that culturally it was something that we agreed on. And I knew that if I wanted to identify myself with this, these were the qualifications of that. So I was going through that whole mold because I wanted to be a teacher of this, right? But it didn't. But as I grew with it and walked with it, now I'm coming on 16 years of having 120. The importance of it is unraveling daily on me, heavy on me, where some of these degrees just hit me out of nowhere, where it was like, oh, wow, like, I'm just like, okay, like, it could just hit you in a way that the importance of it keeps growing. It keeps growing. I look at my lessons. When I look at my lessons every day, I'm seeing them in a different form, a different way, a different shape, that helps me be able to utilize, them more, teach them more better, give them to my children, in a way that they're going to be able to move as far as like application with it, you know what I mean? Like keeping your word, your bond, knowledge degree 1 to 14. Like, why is that important, right? And so it's like, well, some people could be like, some people would say, well, how is that used today? How is word and bond used today, right? One of the prime examples is credit. That degree, you could draw that up dealing with credit. What's your credit score? My credit score is a 745. So I could show and prove in that world that I keep my word, my what? My bond. You understand? And so we're dealing with a lot of economics in 122, right? So if your credit score is not good, that means at one point in time in your Quran, you did not keep your word, your bond. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And things like that. And so that's where I'm at with my lessons now and the maturity of it. I'm definitely not looking at the knowledge degree in the same scope when I was 14, 15 memorizing it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I'm looking at it as I'm going to be 32 in a few more weeks, you know? So now I'm looking at it as a 32-year-old woman, you know? And I'm like, okay, well, word is bond. Well, man, that's all you need to open the line of credit is your word, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then your score going to keep rising as long as you keep your word, you know what I mean? And when you don't keep your word, that score going to go down. That's kind of like your integrity and moral character. You know what I mean? It's like the more people know for you to tell the truth and to be fair and just, it's like you got to score on that. Your name gets good, right? Or if you don't have a good name, that's because you defaulted on your word. You know, something you did, maybe something, was struck a chord with people or whatever. It was something definitely with your word, you know?
I think I'm a food.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you adding on, definitely. We got to do this again.
Anytime. We'll do it every time I come through.
Okay. Because like I said, like one of my main things too is like I think that there's not enough content out there just in the digital realm of Earths representing the culture.
Well, a lot of that too come from a lot of us that's sick, Earths don't be wanting other Earths around because it's like a competition on, like sometimes women feel like they own the gods, even if it's not their god. It could just be their brother or something like that because, a jealousy thing, I didn't really deal with much of it because I was so young, right?
Yeah.
So, what? No, go sit down. I didn't deal with much of it because I was young, but I saw a lot of unfairness, You might see a young sister coming around who's very attractive and pretty and wants knowledge, and because how men are responding to her, that woman can't help that she's beautiful or curvaceous or any of that. That's why she coming around us, because she want to learn how to cloth herself up. How does she coming around us? Because she want to be like us. Yeah. That's why she coming around. But in our minds and our heads, we want to shun this woman because we feel like she coming to take our men. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the thing is that the earth belongs to the original man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The original man don't belong to the earth. I don't feel that way in a sense of control. You understand? Sure. In a sense of control. On a different level, we belong to each other. Yeah, I do believe that I belong to you just as much as you belong to me. Yeah. But I don't feel like that I have the right to control you as the God, because there are some things that I don't like, right? Yeah. So that does become a form of control in an indirect way. Like, we gonna be mean generally. Women are very nasty to each other here, okay? I don't have many sisters here. Yeah. I can count less.
You mean just in general, that's how women...
In general, that's how it is, period. Not even just on a nation perspective, because remember we were building yesterday that everything that happens here is a smaller perception of what's happened globally or in the world. You understand? Yeah. So it's like, generally speaking, women make it very hard for outside women to come in, okay? Doesn't matter what culture you're dealing with. Generally speaking, I don't know what happened, but there's some type of insecurity where we're not coming together with open arms, right? And so I've seen that dynamic a lot. I've seen sisters get shunned away a lot, maybe because they were attractive. Now, one thing that I noticed that makes me feel really good, especially you know, I definitely do identify with being original, but you know, my people or my family is from Puerto Rico, right? When I was growing up, I could count on my hand how many sisters that I knew that had the same background as me, because they was typically shunned away. You understand? And I even had a very close sister who was always ridiculed, picked on. Her originality was always questioned. I never went through those things. And that's only because my father was the God. If my father wasn't the God, I know for sure I would have went through those things. But it's like, well, we can't say anything to wisdom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's young too.
Yeah, you know, like it wasn't. Well, first of all, you ain't gonna say anything to me because I know these lessons better than you. Okay? But then I also gonna have my father, my uncles, my brothers, or even your God check you. You know what I mean? Whoever the sister was, you know? And so, you know, you see that a lot, but now I feel happy because now when I look and I see things going on in the nation, you're starting to see a really big representation of women that aren't just quote unquote African American. You're starting to see that not just the 17 million, but that 2 million representation, you know, and you wasn't really seeing that like that, you know. And not only are you seeing it now, but they're holding on to a sense of their identity and a sense of their culture, because when I was coming up, I felt like I had to abandon everything Puerto Rican to be a part of this, because I didn't know a way for me to proudly be proud of my people and my people's history was still maintaining the identity of being quote unquote original. Gods who definitely helped me with that, definitely Sunez, you know, he would build a lot about different, you know, in his classes, different, you know, things that were happening on the islands and things like that. So there was definitely a strong hold of like gods who were good teachers coming from the same background, and they were proud of who they were. Or you would hear sometimes gods speaking Spanish with the man. I used to be like, what? You know, I used to be like, yo, what are they doing? You know? But it does ignite like a little sense of pride, you know? Because, you know, even there was a point in time where we in this nation, and that's a whole different build, but we weren't even considered original. And we were okay with that too. So it's like kind of like when you look at, you know, civil rights eras and people fighting for, you know, who they are. It's, you know, people who weren't quote unquote 17 million had that same struggle here in the beginning, where they were considered half original, and they were okay with that. You know what I mean? Just to belong to something that they knew was true and resonated in their heart, even if how you were identifying them. So when I think about that, when I think about gods and earths that were so-called Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever, and they were rocking in the beginning, and they were dealing with that, people saying, yo, you half original, but they didn't care because the teachings was real. It's like I applaud them because I don't know if I could have went through that. You know what I mean? Like, so they definitely paved the way for me, you know, and in a lot of regards, I know I paved the way for the next. You know what I mean?
That's why I appreciate what you're doing up in Canada in particular, because that's like a new frontier for our nation. Because like you already know, a lot of our brothers and sisters over there come directly from other countries, whether it's the Philippines or China or Nigeria.
A lot of East Africans, you know, a lot of West Africans. Everybody that I teach is first generation. You know, like their parents was born in Ghana, or their parents was born in Jamaica, or their parents were, you know, like there's no English being spoken at home. It's patois, it's Tree, it's Swahili, it's, you know, and so it's definitely another thing too is it's definitely easier to teach people who have a cultural identity. You could link the dots to them much quicker than I've ever was able to link the dots to somebody, you know, born generation after 7 generations, 8, 9, 10 generations in the wilderness of North America. You know?
Yeah, because a lot of them still have retained a lot of cultural customs that are more in line with our identity before we went through that type of trauma. Like the thing you were saying about how the sisters primarily are vegan. And that's a lot different. Like, add on about that.
Yeah, like all the sisters I teach now, and it's probably like it's a good handful of them. They're all either vegan or vegetarian. All of them, and that's how I met them. I didn't, press upon them, yo, you should be eating like this. Yeah. There's just a consciousness going on, especially with the millennials. And it's kind of like, this is how we're eating, And so that also makes it very easier to teach them because they have a certain clarity in their mind, because not only just they're not eating the pig, they're not eating the dead food, they're not eating the processed food. They know that this is bad for you, They're not eating too much breads. They're not doing any of these things. They're eating fruits and vegetables. They're fasting for a week and saying, yo, we're gonna eat raw food for this week, All the things that I had to learn and master much later on in my life, and I'm still learning and mastering now in my life. It's kind of like already a normal part of theirs as far as the diet, and that's kind of like how I don't know, like for me right now, it's like the times are so easy to teach people now because people is waking up. So it's like, if you a 5%er right now and you ain't got no students, you whack as fuck right now. You know what I mean? Because and for me, I'm always teaching somebody. Yeah. But right now, I'm teaching a whole lot of people. Yeah. And that ain't because anything special about me. It's reflective of the times. Yeah. So it's like right now, if you're a 5%er, you should have at least one student. Yeah. At least. I know sometimes times get hard and you ain't teaching nobody. I've been through that. It's like, man, nobody wanna learn this, but everybody wants this now. Yeah. Wants some type of enlightenment right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like, it's definitely like our time. It's always our time, but right now it's easy. Like these are easy checks we could be making and cashing right now, Yeah. And so it's like, if you're not teaching nobody, you whack right now. Like, it's so easy to just, teach anybody right now. You remember even like when we were down in Kensington Market, was that in September? Yeah. We just building, so many people just standing by us. And that guy was telling the earth, like, oh, he want to build with you, wisdom. I'm like, nah, just, I don't know. I probably should have. When I think back about it, I'm like, man, what did I miss out? Because sometimes it ain't even really what we could give them. A lot of times it's what they gonna give us. Yeah.
Definitely a fresh new perspective on how to